Hello and welcome to my March wrap-up. I've got Blue in my lap and I've got Sylvie over here. So I'm a little bit distracted. But let's talk about all of the books that I read in March. Can't look at me like that while I'm trying to concentrate. You distract me. So in March, I read a total of 44 books. Out of those 44, 10 were DNFs. So I read 34 in total. And out of all of the books, one was an audiobook. So she's given herself a bath. March in general was really, really good. It was a fantastic month for me. I think I had 3 5-stars and that's just phenomenal. So I was pretty happy with March. I know at the end of it, it kind of was on a downward trend, but otherwise, great reading month. As usual, I'm only going to talk about the books that I rated 4.25 and higher. I have talked about every book that I've read this month in my vlogs, so there's reviews for all of them. But without much further ado, let's talk about the best ones. So I'm just doing these in the order that I read them. So the first book was The Spirit Bares Its Teeth, and I gave this 4.5 stars. So this was a gothic fantasy in which people are touched with magic and they have violet eyes. However, women who have violet eyes are pretty much just treated like broodmares and are not allowed to tap into the magic and to use the magic, otherwise they're sent to asylum. So it's a very full-on book. It also heavily focuses on trans characters and their journeys and their grappling with their identity and also the expectations that society puts on them and the inability to be themselves. There's also a beautiful queer romance in there too. And I just really enjoyed it. It's heavy though. It's a lot about like medical horror in there as well. So it's one of the tougher ones, but overall I did enjoy it. And then we have Worst Wingman Ever, which was my first 5-star of that month and I think the year. And this is a very short little novella, Hello Beautiful Girl, by Abby Jimenez, who's my favorite contemporary romance author. And it's about a woman who's acting as a nurse and she's helping her grandmother with her end-of-life journey. So it packed a big emotional punch for me, having recently experienced that. But she ends up forming a relationship with a handyman who works in the building, but they don't cross paths for a while, but they do exchange notes on her car windshield. So I'm not going to talk about everything in detail, but it was really sweet and wholesome and lovely. And I think it's a great little refresher too if you don't know what to pick up next because it's such a quick read. And then I read A Fate Inked in Blood, which I gave 4.5 stars. And this is a bloody Viking fantasy book with a character who has been chosen by the gods to be a shield maiden. And still, even with that power, she's caught up in political BS and also family drama, so toxic family shenanigans, and she doesn't quite know who to trust or what the right thing to do is. There is an enemies to lovers trope in here, kind of incesty, but not. It's not, but like, it's a bit taboo, I guess. But I enjoyed it. I think I would carry on with the series. There's enough there to keep me going. It does have some spice, which is nice. I do enjoy a little bit of, zest. I didn't thoroughly love the relationship. It didn't like really wow me, but I enjoyed the Norse mythology in there quite a lot and I'm intrigued to see how this plays out. Then we have Thrown in the Dark, which I rated 4.25 stars. This is a silly villain story, I guess. It's over the top. It's to the point where it's comical. Like the names of all of the villains are ostentatious and aggrandized. And lo and behold, the villain meets this absolute angel saint lady who's so naive and innocent and starts to get feelings for her, and it starts to make him wonder if his quest of villainy is something that he even wants to pursue anymore, or has his allegiances changed and his values, are they becoming a little less dark grey, maybe a bit more mid-grey. But it was cute. It's very slow burn, like incredibly slow. It's so slow. So I did go into the second one, but I decided not to continue on with the series. I don't love it enough to continue on. But the first one was 4.25 and I somewhat enjoyed it. And then we have Where the Dark Stands Still, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I really like the sort of folky cover. I think that's really cool. I'm just going to read my Goodreads review for this because I think I sum it up. So I said, sentient houses, cat-like spirits, horny boys, and a girl with badass butterflies. I would have liked a bit more tension and flirtation with the romance, but it was a lovely, magic-filled story with deep, dark woods, Forgotten Gods, and the Power You Find Within. So that was also a really surprisingly wonderful read. And I think that was a debut for the author, I think. But yeah, I did enjoy that one. And then we have A Nameless Witch. So this was another 5-star read for me. This was a book that I reread. So this was one from my past, and I'd previously given it 4 stars, and on the second go around, it was a 5-star. I just loved everything about it. It has a lot of similarities to Nettle and Bone. I like this one more than Nettle and Bone, but if you like Nettle and Bone, you probably really like this. You've got a nameless witch who I've named Rowan for my own sake. She's got a demon duck familiar and a broom named Penelope, and it's a story about witches and magic and knights and quests and finding your path and your purpose. And I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of like dark humor in there, and it was up my alley. It just gives me warm, cozy feelings. It's one of those books that I just have a lovely time with. Like, it's just so lovely. It's just so whimsical, and yet there's some edge to it. Our witch herself is a cannibal, and not all good, happy, rosy things happen. So, you know, there's darkness, but there's a lot packed into it. It's very fast paced, so it just gets straight into it. But I really thoroughly like it. It's one of my all-time favorite books now. Don't come here for romance. So there's like romantic notions, and there's it's there, but it's not, it's just a kind of sprinkling on top of the story, and it's bittersweet. So, but I love this book. And then we have Shadow of the Wind. So I had previously rated this 5 stars, and on my second read, 4.5. It still is a good mystery. So if you're looking for a twisty, turny mystery, this is fantastic for that. It's about a boy who gets taken to the cemetery of forgotten books, which is a fantastic name, and picks a book from the shelf, and the book he picks is by an author whose life is also shrouded in mystery. But things that are happening in the book start happening in the real world, and he gets caught up in this complex tale of murder and love and revenge. But a lot of people do enjoy this book. I think this is a generally well-liked book. But for me, it's mostly about the plot and the twists and the turns, and it is about the writing on the characters themselves, but still good book. And then we have A Monster Calls. I've still got blue on my lap. It's just keeping me warm. Patty patty pat. And beat it like a drum. And this book has a piece of my heart. I definitely would pick it up if you want to have a cry. I'm sure it will pull on your heartstrings, because it is about a boy whose mother is dying of cancer. So just that alone will tell you kind of what emotions are being brought up in it, but it's just so touching and sweet and tragic. And I love the addition of the magical realism with the U-Treek, who comes walking to help this boy through this ordeal and the changes that are to come, and pretty much mostly with acceptance of what is. It's just brilliant. It's short, but it just does what it needs to, and it's got great flow, and I love the writing, and the characters are fantastic, and they feel real, and it's devastating. It's just such a devastating book. So once again, this is another one of those books that will be an all-time favorite of mine. 5 stars the first time, 5 shiny stars the second time. Then I read The Picture of Dorian Gray. So previously, I know this had been a 5-star book for me back in my classics era, but I didn't have a review on Goodreads because it was pre-Goodreads. This time around, I'm giving it 4.25. I still love Oscar Wilde's writing. I love his sense of humor. He's a naughty boy. And I thought this was a very interesting story. So this one has magical realism in that it's about a vain, beautiful man who somehow ends up with a portrait of himself that ages for him, and that shows all of his vices and his sins for him, so that he remains flawless and gorgeous. But you watch his sort of descent into depravity and the consequences of those particular actions. There's a lot to about relationships with men. There is a underlying homoeroticness to it. And unfortunately, I believe this was used at Oscar Wilde's trial for being a homosexual. It was used against him, and that just makes me feel sick. But the book itself, I think, is still a great classic, and it's a shorter read compared to some of the other classics, which are tomes. But yes, I just do enjoy Oscar Wilde's mind and the conversations and philosophical musings that he has. And then there was a poetry book, Woman Without Shame. So I don't really rate poetry, but if I was, this would be a 4.25 probably. and it was about a Mexican-American woman, and I just enjoyed the poems. My favorite was about sort of the unsexy beige underwear that most women end up finding themselves in at some point in their lives, and to sort of rage against it. But there was a lot about being a woman, there was a lot about race and violence in the countries that she lives in, and just aging also in general, and I just enjoyed the poems as a whole. And the last top book of this month was A Short Stay in Hell, and I rated it 4.5 stars. I can't rate it high because of the subject matter. It is a book about hell, like, and it's, I won't call it a short stay, but this was fascinating. They've turned something that I love, which is reading books, into a goddamn hellscape. That is putting it lightly. So to be able to do that without just going straight to like what most people would assume hell is, which is like extreme violence and pain, to do it in this other way, which is more even like psychological, was just masterful. And it is one of those books that I probably will remember for the rest of my life. Even with my brain fog and the hundreds of books I read a year, I think if someone brings up, oh, did you read a book called A Short Stay in Hell, 20 years ago? I'm like, yes, I did. Thank you for bringing that back into my consciousness. Yeah, it was something. It's I guess a sci-fi dystopian. I don't know what you would even call the genre, but it was just so soul destroying. I just kept imagining myself in that situation, and I'm like, brain, don't do this to me. Don't picture me there going through that, and how I would cope with an eternity of that. Eternity. Like, and the fact that they stay hopeful. I don't think I could hold on to my hope. I think my hope would be destroyed very early on, to be honest. And I would probably just pray for a permanent death, just nothingness. I'd be like, please just end my existence, that I no longer continue to exist in any form. It would be preferable over this. You're so beautiful. You are so beautiful. You are making this very hard for me. You're making it very hard for me to concentrate, but I don't care. I'll take a break. I will take a break to give you little rubs. So yeah, that was a doozy. It definitely had me up at night thinking about it, but it's memorable, and it's different. So yeah, this month was fantastic, to be honest. There were a lot of DNFs, and there were quite a few, I think 3 stars and things like that, but there were a lot of great books that I really enjoyed my time with. So March was fantastic, and I hope April will be the same. But until next time, stay wild, Star Child.